There is a moment that almost every dog owner has experienced, even if they don't fully understand it, when their dog is calm, relaxed, completely at ease, and then suddenly, without any obvious reason, they stiffen, stare, and begin barking at a specific person while ignoring everyone else around them. What makes this even more unsettling is the inconsistency, because it's not random noise, it's not general aggression, and it's not directed at everyone, it's selective, precise, almost as if the dog is reacting to something we simply cannot see. You might have noticed that your dog behaves perfectly around certain strangers, wagging their tail, approaching with curiosity, even showing affection, while reacting with tension, fear, or outright hostility toward others who, at least on the surface, seem completely normal. And that's where the question starts to feel uncomfortable. Because if two people look the same to us, dress similarly, speak calmly, and behave politely, why would a dog react so differently? Many people jump to the conclusion that dogs have some kind of supernatural intuition, that they can sense bad people or detect something hidden beyond human perception. And while that idea sounds intriguing, the real explanation is both more grounded and, in some ways, even more fascinating. Dogs are not reacting to who a person is in a moral sense, but they are incredibly sensitive to signals that most humans don't even realize they are sending. These signals are subtle, layered, and often completely unconscious, involving body language, scent, emotional state, movement patterns, and even microtensions in posture that escape our awareness but are extremely clear to a dog. So when your dog barks at someone out of nowhere, it's not random, and it's not meaningless. It's a response to something real, something detectable, something that exists in the interaction between that person and your dog, even if you can't immediately identify it. And once you begin to understand what those signals are and how dogs interpret them, the behavior stops feeling mysterious and starts becoming something you can actually read, predict, and even influence. Because your dog isn't guessing. Your dog is interpreting. And in the next part, you'll start to see exactly what they're picking up that you're missing. What your dog is reacting to isn't something magical, and it isn't random either. It's a complex mix of signals that humans constantly emit without realizing, signals that are incredibly loud and clear in the sensory world of a dog. While we rely heavily on words and visual appearance to judge people, dogs operate in a completely different system, one that prioritizes scent, movement, tension, and emotional consistency over anything we consciously notice. One of the strongest triggers is body language, especially the kind that feels slightly off, even if it looks normal to us, because dogs are experts at detecting tension in muscles, stiffness in posture, and unnatural movement patterns. A person who is nervous around dogs, for example, might try to act calm, but their body tells a different story, with subtle rigidity, controlled breathing, and hesitant movements that signal uncertainty or discomfort. And to a dog, that lack of congruence can feel suspicious or unpredictable. Then there's eye contact, which humans often misunderstand, because while we see it as polite or neutral, dogs can interpret direct, sustained eye contact as a form of pressure or challenge, especially if it comes from someone unfamiliar. Even something as small as the way a person walks into a space can change everything, because quick, direct movements toward the dog can feel intrusive, while slow, curved, or indirect approaches tend to feel safer and less threatening. But perhaps the most powerful signal of all is something humans barely perceive consciously: scent. Dogs have an extraordinary sense of smell, and they can detect changes in hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, which are linked to stress, fear, or excitement, meaning that if someone is anxious, tense, or emotionally charged, your dog doesn't need to guess, they can literally smell it. And when all of these signals combine, posture, movement, eye behavior, and scent, they create a kind of emotional profile that your dog reads instantly, without overthinking, without hesitation. So when your dog reacts strongly to a specific person, what they're responding to is not the person's identity, but the signals that person is broadcasting, consciously or not. And the more inconsistent or intense those signals are, the more likely your dog is to react. Before we move forward, just a quick note: if you find this kind of insight helpful and want to understand your dog on a deeper level, following the channel is a simple way to keep learning how they think and communicate in ways most people overlook. Because once you start seeing these signals, you realize that your dog isn't overreacting. They're responding to information you didn't even know was there. And in the next step, you'll understand why your dog doesn't just react to the present moment, but also to something much deeper: their past. What your dog perceives in the present moment is only part of the story, because every reaction you see is filtered through a layer you don't have direct access to, and that layer is your dog's past experiences. Dogs don't evaluate people the way humans do. They don't analyze intentions or construct logical narratives. Instead, they rely on associations, meaning that their brain constantly compares what they are seeing now with what they have experienced before. If a certain type of person, movement, or situation was once linked to fear, discomfort, or stress, even if it happened only a few times, that memory can quietly shape how your dog reacts in the future. This is why some dogs react strongly to very specific profiles, like men with deep voices, people wearing hats, individuals who move abruptly, or even someone carrying certain objects, because those details can resemble something stored in the dog's memory, even if the current situation is completely safe. And the important part here is that the dog is not thinking back in a conscious way. They are feeling a pattern. It happens fast, almost instantly, where the brain detects similarity, triggers an emotional response, and prepares the body to react, often before the dog has time to reassess whether the situation is actually dangerous. This is also why two dogs can react very differently to the same person, because what matters is not the person themselves, but what that person represents in each dog's internal history. A rescue dog, for example, may carry unknown experiences that influence their behavior in ways that seem unpredictable, while a dog raised in a stable and positive environment may be far more relaxed in similar situations. Even small, seemingly insignificant events can leave an imprint, especially during sensitive developmental periods, meaning that a single negative encounter, if intense enough, can create a lasting association. So when your dog barks at someone and you can't find a clear reason, it doesn't mean there isn't one. It means the reason exists in a context you didn't witness. Your dog isn't judging the person in front of them. They're reacting to a pattern that feels familiar. And once that emotional pattern is activated, the body follows with tension, alertness, and sometimes barking as a way to create distance or regain control of the situation. Understanding this changes how you interpret the behavior, because instead of seeing it as random or exaggerated, you start to see it as a protective response shaped by experience. And in the next step, you'll discover something even more immediate than past experiences, something that happens in real time, and that can instantly influence how your dog feels about someone: emotional energy and presence. Even without a past association and beyond all the visible signals we've talked about, there is something happening in real time that can instantly shift how your dog feels about a person, and that is the person's emotional state as it exists in that exact moment. Dogs are extremely attuned to emotional fluctuations, not in a mystical sense, but through a combination of observation, scent detection, and sensitivity to microchanges in behavior, which allows them to pick up on subtle emotional shifts almost immediately. When a person is calm in a genuine way, meaning their body is relaxed, their breathing is steady, and their movements are fluid and unforced, dogs tend to interpret that as safe and predictable, which lowers their guard and makes interaction smoother. But when someone is internally tense, even if they are trying to appear relaxed on the surface, that tension leaks through in ways that are very difficult to fully control, showing up in small hesitations, irregular breathing, tight facial expressions, or slightly unnatural timing in movement. To another human, these details are easy to ignore or rationalize, but to a dog, they create a sense of inconsistency, and inconsistency often translates into uncertainty, which can quickly turn into alertness or defensive behavior. There is also something important about intentional focus, because dogs can feel when someone is overly fixated on them, especially in a way that feels intense or intrusive, like someone staring, leaning forward, or trying too hard to interact, which can come across as pressure rather than friendliness. On the other hand, a person who is present but not imposing, aware but not fixated, tends to create a much more comfortable space for the dog to approach on their own terms. This is why sometimes the person who loves dogs the most gets the worst reaction, because their excitement, anticipation, or nervous energy creates a level of intensity that the dog doesn't know how to process safely. Meanwhile, someone who is neutral, grounded, and emotionally stable might be accepted almost instantly, even without trying. Your dog is constantly reading this emotional landscape, adjusting their behavior based on how safe, predictable, and coherent the person feels in that moment. And when something feels off even slightly, the dog doesn't ignore it. They respond. Now, before we move into the final part, there's one important question to consider, because understanding all of this only becomes useful if you know what to actually do with it. Once you understand that your dog is not reacting randomly, but interpreting a combination of signals, past experiences, and emotional presence, your role in these situations starts to change in a very practical way. Instead of immediately correcting the barking or trying to force your dog to accept someone, you begin by observing, because the reaction itself is information, and the first step is to understand what your dog might be responding to in that specific moment. You start noticing details you may have ignored before, like how the person approaches, how directly they move, whether they lean in, make eye contact, or carry a certain tension in their body, and at the same time you become more aware of your own behavior because your dog is also reading you. If you tense up, apologize excessively, or try to control the situation too abruptly, that can reinforce your dog's perception that something is indeed wrong, while a calm, grounded response helps create a sense of stability that your dog can rely on. In many cases, the most effective approach is not to push interaction, but to allow space, letting the dog observe from a safe distance, process the situation, and approach at their own pace if they feel comfortable enough to do so. You also begin to understand that not every reaction needs to be fixed immediately, because sometimes your dog is simply communicating discomfort, and respecting that signal while gradually building positive associations over time is far more effective than forcing quick acceptance. This might look like controlled exposure, where the presence of that person is paired with calm environments and positive experiences, without pressure or intensity, allowing your dog to slowly rewrite the emotional meaning attached to similar situations. And over time, what once triggered barking can start to feel neutral or even safe, not because your dog was corrected, but because their perception genuinely changed. So the next time your dog reacts to someone and it feels confusing or even embarrassing, instead of asking, "What's wrong with my dog?" you begin to ask a different question. What is my dog seeing, feeling, or remembering that I'm not noticing yet? Because the moment you start asking that question, you stop reacting blindly, and you start understanding.